there's nothing else like it. Like being in that cage and stepping in there toe-to-toe with somebody else and going one-on-one, there's nothing else I feel like in sports that really matches up to that level of excitement and adrenaline.
So Tim, tell me, where are you from?
I'm originally from right here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay, awesome. And tell me a little bit about what got you into martial arts, fighting, that kind of stuff.
Well, I started when I was 11 years old. I was always big into stuff like Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, anything with fighting in it, even like Kung Fu movies, Bruce Lee movies, stuff like that as a kid. So when I was about 11 years old, I begged my parents to put me in some type of martial arts, and they put me into Taekwondo originally. I ended up earning my black belt in that, moved on and wrestled in high school and college, and then once college was done, transitioned to jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, and here I am now.
Awesome. So you started in Taekwondo, and do you still practice any of that stuff, or is it more?
Not totally. There's bits and pieces of that are still, I guess, like in my style when I fight and when I compete, but I don't actively practice it now, but it still does kind of show up a little bit in the way I fight. There's little bits and pieces I still use today.
Cool. How would you describe Taekwondo? Like what would it kind of be more like?
Yeah, it's a stand-up striking martial art. It's more of a kicking-based martial art. So that's one thing that helped me get a lot of good dexterity in my legs as far as throwing different kicks and things like that, having good balance, and a lot of that did transfer over really well and kind of help build a good foundation for the skills I picked up later on training mixed martial arts.
So you're a college wrestler, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Where did you wrestle?
I wrestled at Appalachian State University up in North Carolina.
Okay, and you were a coach for a college wrestling team.
Yes, yeah, I coached the wrestling club at the University of South Carolina. I coached for about 8 seasons or so.
Wow. How would you describe the more difficult? Which one's more difficult, basically doing it or coaching the actual wrestlers?
They're different. I would definitely say physically, for sure, actually competing and participating in the sport is a very physically demanding sport, but coaching brings a different set of challenges because you're working with multiple different people on a team, having to make sure, you know, that one person is good on weight, make sure this person is doing what they're supposed to do classroom-wise, making sure these guys are coming to practice, having to deal with, you know, managing, 10 to 20 college students and making sure they're on point is definitely a different set of challenges compared to just, me focusing on me and me being ready to compete and taking care of my stuff in the classroom and balancing all that.
For sure. That makes sense. Would you recommend wrestling as like a good option for somebody who wants to fight, whether it be, MMA or whatever?
Oh yes, definitely. I would highly recommend that. I think it's probably the best thing you can start off with as far as like a competitive background coming into mixed martial arts. With wrestling, you get a lot of competition experience. It's not uncommon for a high school wrestler to come out and have had well over 100 matches. In addition to that, the skill set you learn on the mat as far as like the takedowns and learn how to control someone once you're on the ground transfers over really, really heavily towards mixed martial arts too.
After your college career, understand you actually, and maybe currently, you started a pro career. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I got done with college and I was kind of just looking for something to stay active. I wanted to still work out, still stay in shape, but going to the gym wasn't, I felt like it wasn't gonna be enough to keep me motivated. So when I was getting ready to move back down here after college, once I found a job, the next thing I started looking for was a gym to train some jiu-jitsu at. So originally just planned on doing jiu-jitsu as like a hobby, a way to stay in shape, want to learn something new. Felt like that was a good fit because it tied in really well with wrestling. And I started training, and the gym I started off at had Muay Thai classes. So I started training some striking arts as well too. Started putting things together a little bit pretty well in practice, and then the idea popped up. I was like, hey, a lot of the guys doing well in the UFC have wrestling backgrounds. I got a wrestling background. I'm training jiu-jitsu, I'm training striking.
Yeah.
Why not try my hand at it? So I took a amateur fight, I think it was February of 2008. Wow. I fought 5 months in a row. I won 4 out of my 5 amateur fights, and I turned pro and then never looked back.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. Super cool. And tell me a little bit about that competitive atmosphere. I gotta imagine going into a fight is pretty intense leading up to the event.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Leading up to a fight, you've got to, of course, balance your training. Most people fighting outside of like the UFC or a major organization also still work a job, so you're balancing that as well. You've got to make sure that you're keeping yourself in good shape as far as like where your weight's at, because you're gonna have to make weight the day before the fight. Typically for me, I would be fighting at 135, and normally I'd be 15, maybe 20 pounds over that, so having to work my weight down to make weight for the fight as well provides extra challenges. But just getting in there and fighting, that's, it's hard to really equate that to any other sport, because it's similar to wrestling in that it's one-on-one. Yeah. But outside of that, there's a whole extra element, because first off, you're in a cage and all the eyes are on you. There's a lot of variables in an MMA fight. There's striking, there's grappling, you can work up against the fence. There's a lot of things that can happen. There's lots of ways to win, and of course lots of ways to lose. So there's a high amount of adrenaline going, lots of stuff going on in the fight, but it's, there's nothing else like it. Like being in that cage and stepping in there toe to toe with somebody else and going one-on-one, there's nothing else I feel like in sports that really matches up to that level of excitement and adrenaline.
Wow. Can you tell me what one of your secrets is to the weight cut? Because that sounds like a lot of weight you got to get rid of.
Yeah, the biggest secret is that it's it's all water. The main thing there is, like for me, I normally stay in pretty good shape. I'm usually pretty lean, so there's no way I'm going to drop 15 pounds of body fat or anything like that. But the main thing is it's a process of pulling the water out of my body, step in at the weigh-ins, make the weight, and that put the water right back in. So I would normally get down to 135. I'd make the weight the day before the fight, and then the day of the fight, I'd be back up around 150, maybe a little bit higher.
How are you feeling at that 135?
At weigh-ins, not good. But the next day when it's time to step in the cage for the fight, I'm good there. I've had some rough weight cuts, but I've also had some of my best performances in the cage right after a rough weight cut, so it hasn't really affected me.
Tell me about this awesome gym you guys have here. This place is sweet, and I want to know a little bit about the beginnings.
Yeah, so we're right here in Cayce. We got opened up about 5 years ago. We actually just celebrated our 5-year anniversary for the business.
Congrats.
My wife and I, thank you. My wife and I, we're both come from martial arts backgrounds as far as like us, growing up. She grew up doing karate. I came up doing taekwondo, moved into wrestling and MMA and stuff like that. And so she actually was running a karate studio with her family, and they were kind of transitioning out of the business, and I was kind of stepping in to help a little bit. And we basically just took that and rebranded it as TNT, and then grew from there.
Super awesome. And what would you say is kind of like one of the focuses here? Like what's is maybe your focus here?
That's a tough one. We have a lot of different programs. I would say our jiu-jitsu program is one of the big focuses. That's something I'm putting a lot of energy into trying to build up now. Yep. We've always had a really strong kids martial arts program. We have a fitness kickboxing program that's really, really popular. Our MMA program does well as well too. But our jiu-jitsu program has been something I've been putting a little bit of extra focus in on, I'd say over the last year and a half or so.
So you got people of all ages coming, and any skill set level, any like from beginning to experience?
Yes, we start at age 3, so we've got kids programs for ages 3 to 14. For our adult classes, we take anybody from beginners all the way up to anybody who's already got previous experience. We have people in our MMA program that have started with us from ground zero, no combat sports experience, never wrestled, never did anything else, and then all the way up to getting them into the cage and winning competitive MMA fights.
Oh, wow. So you got some competitors here that are grinding it out. Cool. Very awesome. Understand you've got something on the horizon here.
Yeah, so this year I've been trying to stay active competition-wise. I started with getting myself back into competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's kind of led to me getting a little bit more of a competitive itch. So I'll be making my return to the cage next month, July 17th, down in Myrtle Beach. I haven't fought in around 3 years. I've been training consistently throughout that time, but the focus was on taking the people coming into the gym and helping to build them up to the amateur level and hopefully beyond, and that's kind of gotten the competitive spark back within me. So I'll be getting back in the cage, and I'll be stepping back into fight again.
Okay, that is super awesome. Very exciting stuff. I got a few questions for you, a few random questions. Tell me who your favorite professional fighter is all time.
I'm gonna go with George St. Pierre. I think just his style, the way he's well-rounded, puts everything together. Also, like just the professionalism. He always carried himself really well. Never had any issues as far as like drama outside of the cage. Never missed weight. He was always just the most professional, and also skill-wise, is probably I think the most well-rounded and best put together skill set as well too.
Cool. How about current fighters? Who's your most exciting watch right now?
Currently, there's lots of fighters I like. I would say I can't really pinpoint one fighter in particular, but I would say as far as like what I like to watch, I typically look at certain weight divisions. The weight class I fight at 135, there's a lot of skill there, especially at the top of the UFC, lots of good guys there. Also the 155, the lightweight division in the UFC also. There's a lot of fighters there I like to watch as well too. So I'd say that's probably the two things I look for is fights at 135, also 145 and 155. Usually those fighters kind of give a good, well-rounded fight, lots of a good skill set, and there's lots of great fighters at the top of those divisions.
Sweet. What's your favorite submission?
Favorite submission? I would go with the rear naked choke. You know, get to the back, the most dominant position you can get to, and then finish from there.
Pretty effective?
Yeah, super effective, yeah.
Very cool. What's your favorite restaurant here in Cayce?
I would say my favorite restaurant in Cayce would probably Duke's Pad Thai. They're right down the road. They're someone we've been, in connection with for years. They actually have trained with us before, but also just really good food, and it's a nice restaurant, great people. So yeah, I'd probably say they're my top pick for Cayce.
Sweet, awesome. Well, thanks for letting me come and talk to you about some of the cool stuff you got going on. Anything else you want to leave the viewers with? Maybe tell them a little bit about the fight or?
Yeah, I guess you guys can find us on Instagram at TNT Columbia. Search us out on Facebook at TNT Martial Arts and Fitness. Hit us up on the internet at www.tntcolumbia.com. I'll be getting back in the cage to fight Saturday, July 17th down at the Myrtle Beach Convention Center. So reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Get tickets, come out, and let's make it a great event.